Let's talk about what happened to 14-year-old Ava Wood. Ava was from Baldwinsville, New York, and she was on the 9th grade honor roll list, and she was the MVP of the JV girls soccer team. On January 20th of this year, around 8:30 a.m., Ava's mother had called the police department asking if they could do a status check on Ava because she did not show up to school that morning. She stated that Ava was at home with her father, and her father was depressed, and she stated that the night before they were on the phone together, and he had said, "This is how it ends for us." Ava's mother had given the police officers a key to get into the house, and when they got into the house, they saw Ava and her father in 2 separate bedrooms. Both of them had gunshot wounds, but the father's wound was self-inflicted. This is a very devastating case, and we may never know why Ava's father did this to her. Many prayers to Ava's family and friends during this very tragic loss.
Today we will be talking about Carl Jackson, who was murdered on October 31st of 1998. Carl Jackson was a data entry clerk from the Bronx and the son of a nurse and a postal worker. He was pretty quiet and had just turned 21. He usually avoided going out on Halloween nights because he thought it was too dangerous, but on the night of October 31st, 1998, he drove with his girlfriend to pick up her son at a Halloween party. Shortly after picking up the boy from the party, a group of teenagers began throwing eggs at their car and apparently yelling out remarks in regards to his girl's costume. Carl got out of the car to confront the boys and a short argument began. Carl then got back into his car to drive off. Little did Carl know, one of the teenagers got into his own car and followed behind Carl. Shortly after, the boy approached Carl's parked car, pulled out a firearm, and struck him in the head. Carl died instantly. The teenager was later to be revealed as Curtis Sterling, who was 17 years old at the time. After authorities received tips from neighbors about Curtis trying to sell a firearm, an undercover cop met up with him. When the cop asked Curtis if the gun had any bodies on it, Curtis replied that the gun wasn't any good and that he had took a man's life in the Bronx with it.
Well, we thought we had a ghost story for you tonight about an old state hospital. It was haunted.
But when investigative reporter Jace Larson started looking into it, he discovered a place with an even more questionable
One old
patterns.
hospital that's reportedly filled with the spirits of patients who never checked out.
I think you probably ought to clear. I don't think that's something good, dude. I really don't. I'm getting a really bad feeling.
My body is like shaking. Like I feel like I'm on a shaking table.
I've never really had it go that way before.
No! Okay, you guys see these details? This is not a joke. This is not a joke.
What? I saw somebody peek around the corner. I saw something. I should have.
My stomach is in knots right now. No exaggeration.
Joy? They're happy that we're doing it.
Dude, let's
go.
go.
We used to take freshmen there just to tell them all kinds of ghost stories.
Make your way over here, please. Somebody make a noise real quick, please. Jesus. Thank you.
That's just amazing.
Do you remember Posh Mama, the woman who is always here on TikTok talking about her teeth and remedies for problems in your life? Well, she killed someone. This is a true story. So Posh Mama was a TikToker who was always talking about oil pulling and teeth health and all this stuff. And for a while, she was actually giving advice to millions of people. I remember seeing her videos pop up on my For You page. But at one point, a bunch of different doctors and people who had some sort of knowledge in the field came on TikTok and started exposing her for basically being a fraud and giving bad advice to people. And then people started digging into her past and found out that only a few years ago she had murdered her boyfriend with a car in Pennsylvania. So her real name is Esther Brubaker, and this is a kind of disturbing tale. So this is Esther's boyfriend who she killed. His name is Jeremy Anderson, and he actually went viral a few years ago for being in a video where he was claiming he was being brutalized by the police. But in 2013, when Esther and Jeremy were driving home in the same car, they began to argue about something, and Esther got really worked up. When they reached the couple's home, Jeremy hopped out of the car, and Esther floored it and ran Jeremy over, killing him. So Esther fled the scene and she was eventually arrested by cops. She was with an ex-boyfriend of hers drinking at a bar. When she was arrested, she was hammered, drunk, and obviously it was time for her to face the consequences of what she had just done. So she ended up serving a few years in prison, but then she was released, and that's when Esther started her TikTok account, Posh Mama. Now, Esther actually bullied family members of Jeremy's when they started speaking out against her and trying to remind people that she had murdered somebody in her past and that they probably shouldn't be taking advice from her. And Esther got really, really mad. Now, eventually her account was deleted. I don't know if she deleted it herself or if it was taken off of TikTok. But this is a shocking story. I definitely would never have imagined that the woman who was giving me advice about my teeth was a convicted murderer.
This girl unalived her little brother, then consumed his private parts. This is 5-year-old Maicon Rauch and his 18-year-old sister Karina, and they both live with their mother Daniela in Brazil. On April 4th of 2019, Daniela had to do some shopping, so she left Maicon back at home with Karina. Daniela returned home over an hour later, and for some reason she wasn't able to open the front door, it just wouldn't open. Daniela had yelled for her children to come help open the door for her, but Karina yelled back that she couldn't open it for her. Daniela started to get worried, so she had contacted her brother-in-law to come break down the door. Once they both got inside the home, they were met with a horrific scene. Karina had unalived Maicon, partially decapitated him, and mutilated him. The family dog started to attack Karina, and she retaliated and bit the dog. Karina then started to attack the uncle by throwing things at him and hitting him. She even tried to flee the scene, but she was luckily caught. Once police had arrived and saw Maicon's body, they saw that his body was surrounded by black candles. That's when they discovered that Karina had cut and eaten some parts of Maicon's body. Karina was quickly arrested and taken to the police station. At first, Karina refused to speak, but later on, she confessed everything. She stated that she asked Maicon if he wanted to come in her room to play some games, and of course, Maicon agreed. Karina grabbed a pillow, pinned him down, and suffocated him. Karina then grabbed a knife and tried to remove his head. She had left Maicon partially decapitated. Karina then inserted the knife into his eyes and burned his feet with a lighter. She then removed his genitals and ate them. Karina was charged with aggravated homicide, attempted murder of her uncle, hiding a dead body, and biting the family dog. Karina was sent to a psychiatric hospital, and she continues to receive medical, social, and psychological care.
Do you remember Brooke Houts, the YouTuber who made her YouTube channel about her dog and how much she loved her dog, and then accidentally uploaded footage of her abusing her dog to YouTube? Well, if you don't, let's go back in time because I remember this happening and this was disturbing. So, to the world, Brooke wanted to seem like a dog mama. She wanted people online to believe that she loved her dog Sphinx, that she would do anything for her dog, and more than anything, she wanted views and clicks. She wanted to be a successful YouTuber. She posted these vlogs all the time about her hanging out with her dog in her house, taking the dog on walks. And from the outside looking in, it really did look like she loved her dog. And then came the accident. So on August 6, 2019, Brooke uploaded a video to her channel, which was a normal video up until the very end. So it's still unknown if Brooke was actually the person who accidentally included these clips in the video, or if her editor put them in out of spite, but at the end of this video, it randomly jarringly cuts to footage of Brooke abusing her dog Sphinx. Sphinx jumps into the frame and Brooke smacks him on the head. She also is seen screaming at the dog, "Stop!" and she spits on the dog and pushes him to the ground. It's a very, very almost Black Mirror-ish type video where it's this person who the entire video you've seen seemingly cares about their dog, and then it cuts to these clips of them brutally attacking their dog. It's just a really, really off-putting and disturbing video. So after this, obviously, there were massive cries of outrage from the entire YouTube community and really the world. I mean, this person was claiming that they loved their dog so much and would do anything for them, but posted footage of them abusing them. Brooke quickly took down the video, quickly took down a lot of her content. She went private on a lot of her accounts. Organizations like PETA came out and publicly roasted her. And the Los Angeles Police Department opened up an investigation into charges of animal cruelty against Brooke. Now, while she was never charged with any crime and the case kind of faded into obscurity, I really hope that Sphinx is in a great home right now, and I hope that she learned her lesson about how you should treat your animals.
Stewie. It's not your fault. What? It's not your fault. I know. It's not your fault. I know.
The woman you just saw in that video, Sarah Stewart, and her husband Christopher Stewart have been arrested, and they are facing charges after their 6-year-old son died from a Benadryl overdose. So on social media, Sarah seems like the happiest, nicest mom around. She has tons of videos on her page, which is still up, by the way. And if you were to look at her page and scroll back a little bit, she would seem completely normal. Well, until she started posting these weird, sad, cryptic posts a few months ago. Posts like this one. Well, as it turns out, on October 30th, 2022, the day before Halloween, the police were called to their home. They claimed at the time that their 6-year-old son had fell off of a recliner, hit his head on a hard floor, and suffered an immediate seizure. That day, their child was transported to the hospital. He survived and held on a little bit longer, but he died later that night. When a search warrant was served on the couple's home, though, they discovered some disturbing things. Apparently, the family and the child were living in filthy conditions, and there had been past child abuse allegations against the parents. An autopsy of their son even showed that there were bruises on his body that were still healing at the time of his death. And the autopsy also revealed something disturbing. Their son hadn't died from falling and hitting his head on the floor. He died from a Benadryl overdose, which, if you know anything about Benadryl, is extremely hard to do. The authorities even said that their son had enough Benadryl in his body to kill a full-grown man. And after their arrest, the parents even said that they would give their son Benadryl if he was being hyperactive. It's just crazy to go on her page and see the post that she made before she was arrested. It's a crazy, crazy story. And hopefully there are some serious sentences handed out here. I know Sarah has been charged with homicide. Her husband has been charged with child neglect, but this is just a tragic story for everybody involved.
Move forward. Move forward, darling. You can do it.
Step after step, he asks her to move towards him. Until...
When I saw it with my own eyes, I thought, how can I deny it, you know?
What Gerald doesn't know at the time is that the woman in the wheelchair, who stood and walked among the crowd, was actually one of Jones' secretaries, hired for the spectacle.
My personal feelings with Jim Jones were always good ones. I always thought he was handsome. Just watching him, I would just be mesmerized.
Some people see a great deal of God in my body. They see Christ in me, a hope of glory.
But when I got old enough to realize the difference between good and bad, I noticed that all of the meetings weren't happy meetings.
Every Wednesday, Jim Jones offers a different kind of meeting to his followers. He calls them catharsis, the purging of evil.
If you got caught talking to people that were not affiliated with the church, then you would be in trouble for that.
Members, even children, could be called to the front and be hit repeatedly with a paddle, while the entire congregation is made to laugh at you.
I would find myself looking around at all the adults, thinking to myself, you can't think this is okay. You just can't. I was scared to do anything wrong because I was scared I was going to be called up and be beaten.
As the Parks family is getting ready to follow Jim Jones to Guyana, Tracy is deeply troubled.
I can't figure out for the life of me why my parents went when the red flags were here.
I want to give you more than I have. I want you to be greater than I am. And if you don't want to go this route, then go to hell where you want to, but don't bother me.
I remember landing in a little plane on the Port Kaituma airstrip that's not very far from Jonestown.
As Tracy gets off the plane with her family, the air is so thick and so hot, she can hardly breathe. The family now has to board a tractor to be taken to Jonestown.
When we came up on them gates, they were standing there with guns. And at that moment, I knew I had just entered the gates of hell.
I said, I feel like I'm making the biggest mistake of my life.
Right away, Tracy and her family are stripped from all of their belongings, including their passports. Then, Tracy is separated from her parents.
They told my parents right then and there, she's going to be staying in the kids' area and you guys are going to be going to your own cottage. I was devastated.
According to Jim Jones, family bonds are selfish. But the truth is, he wants to turn family members against one another. And the best way to do that is to isolate them. Already, Tracy's father Gerald knows he's made a mistake. The next morning, while walking around the grounds, Gerald runs into his own cousin.
And she said, how do you like Jonestown? I said, I don't.